I finally got my hands on this Lumix TZ95D, or ZS80 as it's called in the United States. And since the owner has bought this camera, I've been desperate to use it and try it out and review it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video, is do a review of this camera and hopefully show you what this camera can do and what it's all about. So let's have a look. This camera very much is a compact camera, and the owner bought this camera because he goes walking in the moors and the dales, and it's an ideal small camera to put in the bag or the pocket and take it with you, rather than taking a bulky DSLR or a big mirrorless camera with lots of lenses. This camera fits that bill ideally for travel, and it is perfect if you're going to sort of events with your family and friends, or for family holidays. It's ideal to take this small camera with you and use it in those circumstances. The fact is, it's fairly small. It fits about the size of my hand. My hand isn't terribly big in truth, but it's about 4.5 inches wide, and it's just under 3 inches tall, and it's 1.5 inches thick. It does feel bulky. It weighs just under a pound in weight, so it's got quite chunky. It's got a bit of weight to it, although it's not heavy. It feels perfect. It's probably quite similar to the Cybershot, etc., that the other manufacturers make. I did read on the forums that said potentially it is a little bit chunky than others, but well, certainly compared to the Canon G7X that I reviewed, it's certainly a bit more chunky than that. But it definitely is got a nice feel to it. It's a sort of nice, sort of chunky, heavy camera. This camera itself, this particular camera, it's got a little bit of character, because the owner has already given it some character by dropping it, and it survived. So it survived that drop. It just shows you how robust this camera is, and how good it is. The camera is actually small enough to fit in my pocket, and I have been walking around with it in my pocket like this. Admittedly, I've got fairly loose trousers on today, and I probably should have worn jeans to give you a proper idea of how small this is or how convenient it is. But it certainly fits in my front pocket quite easily, and it also fits in the back pocket of my trousers quite easily. I haven't got jeans on, which are often in slim format or skinny, and they're a lot tighter to your body. So what I think I'll do when I go home, I will put a pair of jeans on and just give you an idea of if these will fit inside jeans as well as my loose trousers. But it certainly is a compact, snug camera that you can take around with you. The camera's laid out as well as you can expect. It's got a really nice flippy up screen, so you can do selfies. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a bit of a test of the video and the selfie mode of this camera. The buttons on the top are laid out really nice. It's not cluttered at all. And the back has just got enough buttons that you would need to do all the functions that you'd want from this camera. So generally, as an actual camera itself, the body, the aesthetics, the comfort of the camera, it's spot on. It's got these nice rubber grips that are just ideal for what you want to use them for. You don't need a big grip like you do with a DSLR, where you need a big bulky camera to hold. It's just because this is a small lightweight camera, you don't need a massive grip, and it's the thumb placement is ideal, and you can just press the shutter. It's spot on. It just aesthetically and build wise, it's fine. It's, as I mentioned, it's got all the modes that you'd expect. It's got manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, program. It's got an intelligent auto. So for most people that buy this camera, intelligent auto would be perfect and ideal. And the intelligent auto means that it's got an advanced auto. So it's very much like the program function you would get in a modern smartphone. So imagine an iPhone or the top of the range Samsung, and you can do all those amazing things with those phones with the technologies built in. That's what intelligent auto is. It's far too much technology for me to even describe, but it's certainly something that's worth having. And I think modern cameras these days have something like that. Of course, it takes JPEGs, of course, really nice JPEGs with great colour, and it also takes RAW. And what I will be doing is using RAW. It's also got a panoramic option, which is fab, so you can take panoramas. And the owner of this camera showed me some of the panoramas he's taken, and they've been wonderful. And it's also got, obviously, it's got scene modes and filters and all those sorts of things. So it's got everything you want from it. The filters are really good, and there's one or two filters that I'm not used to, and they look cool. Although, having said that, I don't use filters. I just tend to filter the pictures myself once I get home. But it's got the ability, the thought of this camera has got the ability to do all those things. One of the neat abilities this camera has, and maybe yours does too, is that you can set the app on your phone and remotely connect to the camera via Wi-Fi. And what you can do is set your camera up. Maybe you're taking a photo of a bird on a perch. You can set your camera up, set it all up on your phone, and then retreat a distance so that you can then take your picture of when the bird pops on the perch, and you could take that without disturbing the bird remotely. And I think that's wonderful. Now, this camera came out in 2022. However, the original version, the TZ90 or the ZS80, came out in 2019. And the truth is, there's not much difference between the two. This version is just a refresh version of that camera that came out in 2019. And this one's got a much better EVF, and it's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability where the older one hadn't. Now, the interesting thing about this camera, it cost the owner about £400. He's had it about a year. Sadly, I've only got this camera for a few hours, so I only had a small chance to prepare for this video, but I'm really excited to use it. It cost £400. I had a look this morning, and I went on to Clifton Cameras and some of the new camera shops. And then I looked on the second-hand market, and what I noticed was, really oddly, it's now selling on MPB for $650, about $850, where originally it cost about $530. And I thought, that's odd. Then I noticed that on Clifton Cameras and lots of other places, none of these are in stock. And these compact cameras are all the rage at the moment. In Japan especially, they seem to be selling like mad. And much like the Cybershot and the PowerShot, you just can't get hold of them, and that's why the second-hand market is so high. $850 for this camera. You could almost buy a car for that price. Well, maybe not, but you know what I mean. That's super expensive for a little compact camera. But obviously, that's what the market's demanding for them. That's the price they are today. The unique selling point of this camera is its massive zoom range, and it goes from 24mm to 720mm full frame equivalent. 720mm with a Leica lens, so it's not a cheap lens. 720mm is just amazing. Imagine getting that distance for your camera, and it goes from f3.3 to f6.4 through that range. So this camera really is a special camera. It really goes right through the range. I know other cameras have a similar range, but I think this is the longest range you get from one of these compact cameras. Yeah, admittedly, the lens comes out a bit like Pinocchio's nose, but still, when you do use this, you won't notice that long nose, that long range of the camera. But yeah, it is really impressive. And let's have a look at just exactly how well the range of this lens does, and let's see what it means. So I've come to a slightly quieter part of the village to try a bit of this video. Of course, the camera's got 5-axis stabilization, so this would be a good test to see how well the stabilization goes. I'm just walking at a nice slow pace, trying to keep steady, and I think he's doing okay. I think it should be all right. Obviously, the mic has got a stereo mic. It does have some wind noise buffering, but I'm not really windy where I am now, so it's not a really good test. But I don't think, as all of these sort of cameras, the inbuilt mic, the wind reduction doesn't work very well. But hopefully this gives you a good idea what the stabilization and the video's like. Spec wise, it's got a 1/2-inch sensor and it's 20 megapixels, and I find that staggering that you get 20 megapixels on a 1/2-inch sensor. That's mind-boggling when you think about the amount of photosites that are stacked on that sensor is stunning. It does 10 frames per second burst mode, which is perfect. ISO goes from 80 up to about, I can't remember what the number was. It's quite high. It's plenty high enough for 99% of photographers, and it goes up to 1/2000th of a second on mechanical shutter, and that's as quick as you really need it. So that's perfect. And it's got bulb mode, and it's got all those things, and it's got a self timer. And interestingly, what it also does, you can take your shot and then you can focus after you've taken your shot. So without looking at all the technical details of that, in my mind, it sounds like it operates like a phone camera, where the phone camera will take 20 pictures all at the same time within a millisecond or whatever long it takes to do that. And then it enables you to pick the focus based on those 20 different images it's taken, like they're stacked. I can imagine that. I'm assuming that's how it works. I don't know because I didn't look it up, but that's what the spec says it does, which I think is pretty cool if you ask me, to be able to do that. It's got 5-axis stabilization, so it should be, you should be able to hold this camera in fairly low light. What I'll do now is I will walk around this sort of village, the park where I am, and try to take up a couple of shots and hopefully show you what this camera can do. From my first image, I've seen some ducks down there in the pond, and I'll try and take a photo of aperture priority. I'm going to go for the lowest aperture I can based on the focal length, and I'll try and get my first shot. I'll flip the screen up so I can get a better chance of seeing it, and I'll zoom in between this tree, try to get a picture of this duck. This is raw aperture priority. For this shot I'm going manual, so the picture I took of the duck I did in aperture priority. I've gone 1/250th of a second, f4.9. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take this picture now, there it is, and it's kind of a picture of, I've got the bridge over Nettleham Beck leading towards this cottage, and I've got a little bit of the tree in the top just to give it some further definition. I really like these finger posts, and for this shot I've got the finger post on the right hand third. I'm still in aperture priority, and I've gone for quite a low aperture. Let's see what it's given me. I'll just press this button and it gives me 640 of a second base ISO, which is 80. So I'm just going to take this photo now. I think these ladies are coming in the shot, so I'll wait until they come out of my shot. In fact, I'll zoom in a little bit. Just tilt it down slightly. Got the backdrop of this house behind it. I'll be honest, I'm quite partial to Lumix cameras, especially with my bias for micro four thirds. And I really like the idea of a small, light, low-cost camera that produces fantastic quality images. And I think this is exactly the same thing. Lumix can't make a bad camera, or they can't make a bad camera system. But I'm not saying they're much better or any better than the other camera manufacturers. They're just different. They just have something slightly different to offer. In this camera, it's that long, extended focal range that really makes this. Plus, many other settings and spec of this camera also make it stand out. Do I recommend this camera? Well, obviously I do, because I like it, and I would be very happy to have this in my pocket walking around with me. However, I don't think there's a lot between this one, the Canon, the Nikon, the Sony. They're all very similar, and they're all provide you with excellent photography, a bit of the ability to take some great shots. But certainly this is amongst those better cameras, and if you did decide to spend your money on this camera, you would not be making a mistake. I guess for me personally, and the style of photography, the way I use these small cameras, there's two things that's missing on this camera. One is that it doesn't have a sound, an input mic jack or socket, so you can't plug an external mic into it, which is a shame. It's got micro USB as a charger, but it does have HDMI output, but it really could do with a USB-C, be more modern. But the nice thing saying that is that it does charge in camera. So if the idea of this camera is travel, so if you're taking out this camera with you out and about, and you end up using up all the 280 pictures worth of battery or video, or whatever you're doing with this, then if you are out and you're stuck for power, you can just plug the camera into a power bank and you can just carry on as long as you need to. So that's fantastic. Where many other cameras, you have a separate power pack and you have to charge the battery externally. But this one you charge internally is a pretty neat thing for it to have. And potentially why it's slightly chunky, I guess. There's got to be a reason why it's slightly chunkier. But yeah, definitely I would recommend, if you're looking for a compact camera to travel with, you won't go wrong with this camera. The range is fantastic. The spec on it is amazing. Having said all that, thank you very much indeed for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, of course, you could like it. That would be nice. And if you like this content, these camera reviews, the camera content, all the sort of stuff I'm trying to create, then why not subscribe and join along with me? That would be amazing too. Once again, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.